Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today we have from Mindbox, Peter and Bartek, who are going to talk about how to make rollouts out to European subsidiaries. Just a few reminders, if you have any questions, put them in the question box. We'll get to them at the end of the presentation. And we will also be recording this session, so it'll be available on the EUG website within the next 24 hours if you want to go back and take a look at it. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Peter, who will be doing our presentation today.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, depending on your location. So I will try today to answer on this question, how to make the rollout to European subsidiaries. And actually, the agenda for today is that first I will tell a few words about the challenges, what you need to take into consideration in regards to legal requirements, in regards to how the people are used to using the ERP systems in some of European countries. So first we'll talk about challenges. Then I will try also to tell a few words about what might be the benefits, because it's not only hard work to make a rollout to Europe, but also you could have a benefit of using system in a centralized way. So that will be in the second part of our presentation. And at the end, we will just make a summary of, we will just go through the points, what you should consider when you plan a rollout. And at the end, we can have this Q&A question. So let's start first with challenges. So what are the challenges when you do the rollout to European countries? So first of all, well, I think that's obvious that for each country in Europe, there are different rules. There are many countries in Europe, and actually each of those, they have different legislation. Even if the legislation of local countries is dependent on the European Union directives, but still each country has like own implementation of specific rules. So let's have a look into the financial. So first, what is very interesting, and might be surprising for some of you, that in some of the countries, the chart of account is actually defined by the government. So there are countries in Europe that you cannot use your own chart of account, but you have to use the chart of account which is in line with the structure imposed by the Minister of Finance. And just an example, the countries where you have to use the specific chart of account, it's like, for example, France, it's Belgium, it's Romania. In opposite, there are of course countries like Poland, like Norway, Finland, that you could use any kind of chart of account. So you need to remember, because we had seen this very often in our implementation, that when the customers from US, they were coming and they said, okay, we'd like to use a system, we'd like to copy our chart of account from the headquarters. In some cases, we had to tell them, okay, you cannot do it. It's not actually possible to do in this country. You need to have like a local chart of account inside of your ERP system. Actually, in Epicor, there is a good way how that could be addressed, and actually I will answer that later on when I will be talking about the benefits and about how the system should be set up. But just at this point, please remember that there are some countries that you have to have a defined chart of account by the government. Another very big topic which is in Europe, it's SAFT reporting. So actually, well, I put here on the slide the definition, which you could find on the web. So maybe I'm not going to read it. You could read it by yourself or see it later on the slides. But in general, the SAFT, it's a reporting. The companies are obliged to report certain financial information from their system, and they need to deliver it to the government in a XML format. So this is actually one of the European Union standard, but again, every single country has own implementation of this format. So what it means that even if you have a SFT file ready for example, for Poland, and if you want to use them in Romania, there is no way for that because the format are completely different. They contain more or less the same data. So in most of the cases, we are talking about like VAT transaction, like general ledger transaction, detailed information about invoices, information about warehouse movement, and so on. So we can say that the set of data it's more or less the same in each country, but the format of the file is completely different. Yeah, so you need to consider when you will be implementing the Epicor in Europe that you need to spend some time into setting up the proper file format, or actually because the file format is already available for many countries, but still you will need to spend time to map the information from your Epicor into the file, which will be sent later to government. And actually, those structure I already said that they are different per country, and also the complexity is really different. We have countries where the file format is fairly simple, like for example in France, the format is just containing the general ledger transaction, so it's not so difficult to produce that file. But in opposite, we have countries where the structure is extremely difficult, like for example in Romania, because in this file in Romania, you need to send like everything, yeah? Like customer master data, supplier master data, your chart of account, GL transaction, invoices, payments, warehouse movement. So as you see, there's a lot of data which needs to be taken into consideration. Actually, if you look into SAFT, it's still not implemented in all countries. That's important to notice, yeah, because this actually regulation is fairly old. I mean, it has been already announced in the European Union like in 2008, 2009, and there were countries which they implemented very quick, like for example Austria or France, and there are countries which are just implementing it just right now, like for example Romania or Hungary, and there are some countries in Europe which still they didn't start this implementation, but they will probably do it very soon. So here I was trying to prepare a list for you. You could see the countries, you could see also how this regulation is named in a specific country, and also you could see from when actually this is an obligation to send these files from ERP systems. Another thing which is interesting is European Union is trying to standardize the format for e-invoice, because again, right now there's many formats. You know, each ERP has own format, each EDI broker has own format, and so on. But the idea is that it should be one format, and actually the idea is that the flow for the document will be not like that you are sending the invoices to your customer, but you should send the invoice into the government webpage, where it will be registered by the government, and then your customer will be able to download that invoice from the government webpage. You know, it's of course done because the governments in Europe, they would like to control the flow. They would like to control the financial transaction, just to be sure that, you know, taxation is done in the proper way. So again, this is a challenge for companies because they need to fulfill this obligation. However, that is also that could also bring a benefit, yeah, because if the invoice is structured in the same way, it means that when you will download it from the government webpage, you could probably very easily import it into your ERP system. Yeah? So it means that probably in the near future, there will be no need for any OCR tool for processing accounts payable invoices, because you will be getting actually the invoices from your vendors in electronic form, and it will be always the same format. Yeah? So then it means it will be fairly easy to make an interface to the ERP system. If we look into where it is already implemented, actually there are two countries which is already in use, and this is obligatory. Yeah? So you have to send invoices like that. So it's already implemented for Italy and Hungary. And right now there are two other countries where it's under implementation. It will be obligatory from 1st of January 2023. It's Poland and Romania. By the way, I'm very sorry because I have an allergy right now, so I might be broken a little bit, but I hope I will be able to continue. So what are the other challenges? What you need to remember when you think about using Epicor ERP in Europe? So again, I assume that most of our attendees are from US. So what might be different comparing to US? We have VAT tax, which is called as a value added tax, and it's actually present in all European countries. However, again, every country handles this in a different way. So, well, first of all, each country has own VAT rates. So, there are countries where VAT is very high, like, for example, in Poland, we have 23% for the VAT. In Denmark, for example, there's like 25% for VAT, but there are, of course, countries where the VAT is much, much lower. And again, if we'll think only about tax rate, that's not really a problem, because that could be very easily set up in the Epicor. But beside of the different VAT rates, there are also different rules. For example, rules when you can deduct the tax, because in some countries you could deduct this VAT tax with the date when you are booking the document. But there are countries that, for example, you cannot deduct VAT under booking date, but because, for example, the transaction is referring to something which happened in the past, and then you need to be able to follow the VAT date and, for example, recognize that this is actually tax from the last 2 months, for example. Also, there are different rules if you could deduct the amount, because not every tax is deductible. Again, just to give an example, in Poland, if we are buying the fuel for the cars, for the company cars, you could only deduct 50% of the VAT. Another 50% is not deductible. You cannot put this into your books. You need to handle it in this very special way. What is, of course, important when you think about Europe, it's, of course, multi-currency. Because again, if you are doing the business in US, then probably you are just working using the US dollars. But in Europe, okay, we have euro, which is in most of the European countries, but of course not in all of them. Yeah, we have of course have countries which has own currency, like England with the British pound, like Switzerland with the Swiss franc, Scandinavian countries like with Swiss kron and Danish kron. In Poland, of course, we have also local currency like Polish zloty. In Romania, we have Romanian lea. So there are still multiple different currencies in Europe, which means that you will need to set up in Epicor the mechanism to calculate and to catch all of these exchange gains and losses which you might have on the transaction. Actually, again, Epicor is ready for that, but you need to remember that that has to be set up in the right way. Another, maybe not the challenge, but this is something what our customers in Europe that they frequently ask for, is a tool which will allow automatic download from the of the exchange rates from the national bank. Because typically what you want to have in a system is there are rates which need to have every day from the bank, because they influence the values which you book into your accounts. Multilingual. Again, I would say that this is obvious when you are using ERP. Probably the local users in each country, they will be asking to have a user interface in local language. And the good news is that actually Epicor has quite many languages already incorporated into the software, so you could easily switch for the user. However, of course, you need to have it in your license. But also, if you think about multilingual, it's also about document layouts. For example, yeah, you like to print the invoice, so you need to remember that this invoice will need to be translated. And again, I'm referring to the situation we had in the past. We had some customers coming from US, and they said, oh, okay, we will be using the invoice which we already designed for our US subsidiary. But we said, okay, hold on. First of all, you need to translate this to Polish. But also, it's not only translation, because you also need to consider that in each country, there might be different rules about what specific document contain. So, for example, in most of the European countries, you will need to have the VAT registration number printed on the invoice, and of course, it's a VAT registration number for you as a seller, but also you need to place the VAT number of your customer. And of course, there are many other situations like that. There are some situations that you need to put some special number if you are selling let's say dangerous goods, because sometimes you need to have a special certificate which allows you to make this kind of sales, and this information will need to be also put on the invoice. So why I'm telling that, again, it's if you think about copying the data from US subsidiary and just use them straightforward in Europe, probably that will be not possible. You will need to spend some time on adjusting them to local needs, to local regulation. Another thing which it's worth to remember is electronic bank interface. Well, right now that will be the expectation from most of the ERP users, that they don't need to spend any more time on manual, let's say, booking the payments to their suppliers. They don't want to spend time on booking the bank statements. It could be done by the system. So there are such there is such module in Epicor, but you need to remember that in each country you will find out a different format, and actually it's not even per country. It's most likely that each bank in the specific country will be using own format. So it means that actually you will need to spend some time on adapting, or let's say mapping the format for specific bank into Epicor. It's possible. There are tools built into Epicor, so that could be either done by a consultant or that could be done by the IT personnel, but it has to be done. Yeah, it probably will be not so easy that you can just run Epicor and just get it. Yeah, you will need to spend some time on it. What might be also interesting is it's a concept of a split payment. What is that? So actually, split payment, we are talking about split payment in the situation that when you pay the amount, the gross amount, you have to pay into two different accounts. So you pay the VAT amount into some special account, which is controlled by the government, and the net amount goes into the supplier account. This regulation is again introduced by the governments because they want to be sure that they really get money from the VAT, and that this tax is not like circulating somewhere in the air. They want to be sure that the money are collected in the right way. So that's why they kept this special separate account. And when you pay, you need to remember that the payment needs to go to different bank accounts. Another thing, of course, it's Intrastat. Intrastat is a special report which is showing the transaction between the European countries. So again, this is important for the government and also for the European Union in general, that they would like to see the volume of transaction between specific countries, the volume of transaction on specific items. So you will need to implement that in Epicor. You will need to put like a special tariff codes into your master data, into the parts master data, and then you will need to produce the XML file, which will be sent to the government. So that has to be implemented when you are running Epicor in Europe. And also the last thing which I would like to mention here is asset management. If you are using that module in Epicor, you might expect that each European country has a different approach. There are different calculation methods, and also there are different basis how you calculate the depreciation value. So again, you need to remember that each country has own regulation on that, and make sure that it's properly set up for specific country. Okay, so I talked quite a lot about challenges, but I don't want to leave you in the thinking that it's only difficulties and you will not get any benefits out of it. So let's try to think about what are the benefits. Yeah, what you could get from using the same ERP. What are the benefits? What you could get from the rolling out your current Epicor to European country. Well, so first of all, the first very obvious benefit is that you could use central architecture. Yeah? So you could try to put everything into one server, so that will reduce the hardware cost, and all countries will be like remotely connecting to the central server. And actually, I would say that this is the most popular way. Most of our customers they handle just one server, and they kept companies inside of this one server for many countries. I would say that at least 70, maybe 80% of our customers, they are doing in that way. We have also some customers which they prefer to keep local servers per each country. This is also possible, but the most common one is to have one central server, and that will reduce the cost of the hardware. Another benefit is if you will be using Epicor in more than one country, well, you could build one support team which will be supporting multiple locations. So probably you could reduce costs if comparing to the situation that in each country you have separate ERP, and each country has to keep local resources knowing the ERP. If you are using one ERP in many countries, okay, you will have one central team and you could reduce the cost. What else? Probably you could get lower price per user, because actually that's the way how Epicor are selling the licenses. More you buy, then less, then you get better price per user. So it's better if you have one big installation with like, I don't know, 100 or 200 users, comparing to the situation when you have like multiple separate sites with like 10 users here, 10 users there. What is also another benefit? It's first of all it's a possibility to introduce the standard, because if you are using different ERPs in each country, it's difficult to get the same data. Even when you run reporting, when you collect data from different countries, you are not necessarily sure if you are looking into like apple to apple, because in another ERP the process might look differently. It's also difficult to control if the process is set up in the right way from the headquarter perspective. But if you are using Epicor, you could introduce a standard across the whole organization, not only in US, but you could also be sure that the other countries that your subsidiaries in Europe, they follow the same processes as you do in US. So you could have this standard in the process, and then of course you could also have a standard in reporting, yeah, because if the data will be coming from the same ERP, it will be much easier to compare the data between the countries. And last but not least, and I will tell a little bit more about it, is the possibility to automate the process between subsidiaries. So it means that some of the information could be automatically passed between the countries, and if you will set it up in the right way in the Epicor, of course you will save a lot of time of the users, because some of the information will be just passed automatically. So what we can automate? First of all, let's look into the financial part. So Multibooks, and by the way, I don't know if you remember still, but at the very beginning of my presentation, I was telling that there are countries that they have to use own chart of account, yeah, And at the same point, you might say, yes, but I would like to use corporate chart of account because I would like to see reports being in the structure of a corporate chart of account. So Multibooks is an answer for that, because in Epicor you could have unlimited number of books inside of the one company, and actually each of those multi-books could have a separate chart of account. What it means that in countries like France or Romania, that's the best way to set up the local chart of account in the one of the books, and then make a mapping from this local chart of account from book number 1, and then you do the mapping to book number 2, which contains the corporate chart of account, and the accounts are translated. So it means that you could say, okay, account number, I don't know, 100, this is equal to account number 555 in the corporate chart of account. And this translation, when you set up the mapping, this translation is done like, on the fly. Yeah? So you don't need to do anything more. You will register the transaction under the local books, and then Epicor will automatically translate this to the corporate account. What else is worth to know about multi-books? Well, as I said, there are unlimited number of books. Each of those could have a separate chart of account. Each of those could have a different accounting periods. Again, that might be interesting. I saw in from my experience, I saw the companies which have accounting periods not necessarily equal to the month. I know companies that they have accounting periods equal to weeks. Yeah? So, for example, the period is like 4 weeks, and then another period is starting. Yeah? So that could be also reflected in multi-books. Each book could have different currencies. So again, that's also something what might be very useful from the headquarter point of view, because you could keep the local book on the local chart of account, for example, in euro or in I don't know, Polish zloty, and then when you set up that in the right way, it could be automatically transferred to the US dollar, and it will be shown in the corporate structure. So that's the benefit of using multi-books, and typically when the customers comes from US, we encourage them to use the Epicor with that setting. Yeah, that really helps. Another thing, another functionality from Epicor, which is also worth to consider to implement if you are using Epicor in many countries, it's a consolidation. So consolidation means that we can gather the information from multiple companies, and we can combine and summarize them into one reporting company. There are different types of consolidation, because we could have like periodic consolidation, which means that you only summarize the data, for example, at the end of the month. So you just run like you need to run this functionality like consolidate, and then system will sum up the information from the many companies. But also you could have something what is called continuous consolidation, which means that every single transaction is like transported or into the reporting company at the time when you book this into the company. With a consolidation, you could also use the same mechanism which you already described for the multi-books, so that you could change currency in the flight. And also, what is important, you could consider that in the reporting company, you could do own bookings. And that's also important, yeah, because I've seen a situation that companies are telling, okay, we treat this transaction as a tax deductible in local currency, in local according to local rules, but because of some reason, this transaction is not deductible in the corporate. So what it means that you could enter extra bookings into the reporting company, which will adjust the result according to the corporate rules. And here, let's have a look into scenarios. So that's one scenario. Yeah, as you see, you have multiple companies with each for each country separate, like US, UK, Germany, and then here you simply you simply summarize them to one reporting company, and you switch to the headquarters chart of account. But another scenario is that actually you could have like two steps. Yeah, so you could think that first you will you have, like, for example, UK company with local chart of account, then you translate this into separate company with local chart of account for UK, and then at the end you do the summary of it. So it's worth to know that there are these two possible scenarios. Okay, what else could be automated? And I would say that that's the most important one. And again, we are just right now implementing this for a few of our customers using Epicor in many countries. If you have a situation that you are trading with your subsidiary, that, for example, the subsidiary from Poland is, I don't know, buying something from the US, then it's worth to set up the intercompany transaction. Because typically, if you do not automate that, it means that you need to have a person who entered the purchase order in Poland, and then someone else has to enter it manually in US. But if you will set up the intercompany transaction, that will be automated. What it means that a person from Poland entered the purchase order into Epicor, but then the sales order is automatically created in the US. Yeah. By the way, I'm sorry because I see we have some glitch here in the PowerPoint. Yeah? The slide is wrong because it should be on the left side. You should see someone who is entering the purchase order, and on the right side it is created as a sales order. Yeah? So sorry for that. But I hope you understand the process. Yeah. In one company we create a purchase order. Poland is buying from US, and it automatically creates a sales order in US company that the sales order is for the Polish subsidiary. And then this process could be automated even further, because when you will enter the shipping information into in US, yeah, let's imagine that you are already about sending the goods to Poland, that will be automatically transferred, the information about the goods which are in the transfer, it will be automatically sent to Polish company. So maybe let's have a look quick into how it looks in Epicor. If you look into the screen, so okay, that is representing a purchase order entered in purchasing company, and then Epicor is preparing something what is called like intercompany PO, and that will be transferred to the shipping company. And here in the shipping company, someone approved this, so this is already approved as a sales order. There will be links. Yes, actually, you will be able to see the link that this specific sales order in US it's linked with that purchase order from Poland. And then you make a you package the goods, so you enter information about what will be sent, and that information will be then sent to Poland, and you will be able to make something what is called like intercompany receipt. So it means that will reduce the work for the users. So I already told about the orders, shipments, and at the end you could also have invoices which will be automatically transferred. Yeah? So you create a sales invoice in US, and that could be automatically booked into as a AP invoice in the Polish books and the company which is receiving the delivery. So as you could imagine, that really helps, and that will save a lot of work for your users. And what else, if we talk about intercompany, what else is worth to consider to implement? It's global master data. So you might want to handle the information about your customers or parts or suppliers in one central place. And if that's important for you, then you could set up this mechanism, which means that, for example, if you create the part, if you change any information about the part, you will be doing this in one, let's say, main company, and that change will be introduced into all companies using Epicor. Of course, by the way, even if you have global master data, Still, of course, you could have your local customer supplier. So that could be set up in this way, that you are just marking in the in Epicor, you flag the information. Okay, this is a customer which is handled at the master level. Yeah. By the way, here it's interesting because many of our customers, they ask us, okay, it's very nice that we can handle the parts on the master level, but if there is anything which help us to handle the price on the central level, well, there is no such function in Epicor in standard, but actually we developed for one of our customer customization for that. Yeah, so if at some point maybe you would be interested to have it, so just let us know. We can show you how it works in details. Also, what it could be handled on the corporate level is a credit limit. Again, yeah, you could have two approaches. Yeah, you could have approach that you are creating a separate credit limit for each company, but maybe you would like to also have like a global credit limit. Yeah, so you could imagine that you have a customer which is, let's say, present worldwide, and you are selling to this customer from US, from Poland, from Germany, but you would like to keep the credit limits for all transactions all together. Yeah, that you don't want to have a situation that you will sell too much if you will combine the sales from all countries. Yeah, so you could set it up in the right way in Epicor. And another one which I think it's very interesting is the global purchasing. So you are able to set up in Epicor the global purchases, which means that you could collect the requirements from, for example, from Germany, from Poland, from Sweden, and then you could combine that into one order, purchase order, and then send to your vendor. And which typically it means that if you will be buying you know, a summarized volume, then you probably will get better price from your supplier. And then when you got the delivery, you are able to split off the receipt into each company separately. Good. So that was about the benefits which you could have setting up Epicor in the right way. And a very short case study. I just encourage you to maybe visit our webpage, and actually we have a movie. I don't want to play this movie during our webinar, but when we will be sending this PowerPoint to you, there is a link here, and you will be actually redirected to YouTube, and then you will see the whole story. But the story is about TrueFlex. It's that's the company in automotive business, and they were using Epicor already in US. They were doing that for many years now. But in 2014, they decided to build the factory in Poland. And actually, that was very interesting because the people from US, they visit Poland. They come in May, and actually at that time they were mostly focusing about, you know, selecting the area in Poland where the factory will be constructed. So you could imagine, yeah, that in May there was nothing. Yeah, that they even didn't know where they will be settling the production. But at that time, when they visit Poland, they also come to our office and they discuss how they can make a rollout. And actually, they were sure that they can just easily make like a copy paste. Yeah? Like, okay, we are already using Epicor in the US, so just we'll copy the settings and we will ask users to use the system in the same way how we are doing in United States. But well, we spent like 1-2 hour discussion, and we explained to them what we already shown to you, that well, there are many different things that you need to consider, yeah? Like VAT, like document layouts, different tax handling, you need to deliver this electronic reporting to government and so on. And we managed to convince them that actually it's good to have a project together with us, and actually we were able to make a copy. So some of the settings were really copied from US because they could be used in the same way, but there were other things which we had to set up from the scratch. And actually, that was, I would say, super fast project, because in November they already decided where the company will be located. They start hiring the people. Yeah, so you could imagine, yeah, when in October, November, there were still no people really working at their factory. They just hired them. So we created the project plan in November. In the meantime, they started the construction. They complete the construction of the production hall somewhere in March. In parallel, we were doing the implementation with them. We copied what was possible, and we set up things for Poland. And then in April, actually, we have user acceptance tests, and in May they went live. Yeah? So you know, if we think that the starting point was somewhere in November, December, 5 months for the implementation, that's really quick implementation, and actually very successful. Yeah, so I encourage you to play the video under the link. You will hear the success story from our customer. Okay, so just to make a summary, so if you think about making a rollout to Europe, what we advise? Well, first of all, you should find a European partner who will help you to analyze the local legal requirements, and really that's important thing. Another point which I think is as a takeoff from today, it's you shouldn't assume that you can make a simple copy of your setting from US. Of course, there are some processes, there are some settings which could be copied and could be done in the same way, but there are other things that will need to be adapted to the local needs. I think it's also important that you need to involve the local team into the projects. From my history, from my experience, I've seen in the past some well, failed implementation, because the headquarter was just like, you know, saying, okay, we will do the implementation by our global team, and we don't really need to involve local team into decision making. And in my opinion, that was a mistake. You really need to, you know, hear the voice of the local people working in each country. So you need to engage them into the project. Of course, if you are implementing the same ERP in many countries, you would like the users to follow the same processes, and which is good. Yeah, which is I said this is a benefit here, that you could have a global standard. So this is a good approach, but you need to be open that in some cases you need to also adapt to the local requirements. You also should think about the architecture, because you could have, I gave that example already, that you could have one central server, but maybe by some reason you will need to have local servers. And by the way, right now, more and more customers go to the cloud, and you know, then you don't have a problem with architecture. Yeah, I mean, because actually that's taken, the responsibility is taken by the vendor. Yeah, I mean, Epicor is giving you access to the cloud, and from your perspective, you don't really care from where you get into this installation. And the last point, which I think is important, if you already are using the Epicor in many countries, think about automation. Yeah? Think about to improve your processes, that at least the flow between the companies, the internal companies, is fully automated. It's available in Epicor. It's actually standard functionality. It just needs to be set up in the right way. Good. So we come to the Q&A session. I'm not sure if there are any questions.
Yeah, there are a few that came through.
Okay.
So the first one is a little more of an FYI, I think, than a question, but it says, we run Epicor with German CSF Interstat reporting in the government required XML format is not working for us in the most current release of 2021.2. Epicor still needs to implement this in the next version. I don't know if that's anything that you could speak to or you've heard from others.
Well, I'm not sure if I will be able to answer that question, but there is one important thing. Yeah, this kind of reporting is really complex. Yeah, you could not expect that it will be working like, you know, out of the box. Typically, because what Epicor is giving you is typically giving the structure, but still it has to be set up by consultants. They typically need to spend some time to map the information from specific fields from Epicor to specific fields in the reporting. So maybe I'm not aware about the situation in Germany, which you mentioned, but that is my what I would suspect. Yeah, try to talk to consultants, because they probably will need to do a mapping together with you to get the proper result.
Great. And there was one other question that came through here at the moment. Do you have experience in running the multi-company process, i.e. using global parts, global contact, intercompany PO and SO, including drop shipments and global Consolidation? We are planning to set this up between our North American and German companies.
Yeah, we already implemented this for a few of our customers. So yeah, this is running already. We even add some extra functionality about the price list, yeah, because that was one of the requirements from our customer, not only the changing the orders, but also they ask if they can control the price lists on the central level. It was not available, so that we customize, but everything else is a standard functionality. It has to be set up in the right way. Yeah? So you will need to spend some time with a consultant just going through the settings, designing the flow. But yes, that's something what we do.
Perfect. I didn't see anything else pop up here, but was there anything you wanted to say to wrap up?
Well, I already wrap up with the previous slide. I just make a summary. So, well, I hope that it was useful. We see a lot of interest here from US-based companies. Quite many of them, they have subsidiaries in Europe, and not all of them, they are using Epicor in Europe. But in my opinion, that's really a good direction for companies, yeah, just to standardize the ERP across the whole organization.
Right. And if anybody has any questions that come up afterwards, feel free to reach out to me and I can get you in touch with Bartek and Peter. Or if you want to reach out to them directly, you can do that as well. And like I said, this PowerPoint will be, this presentation is recorded, and it'll be up on the website if you want to go back and look at anything, probably by the end of the day today. That's my goal anyways. Well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was nice to have this opportunity to speak all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.